this is a very unique set of people in this room, and I will sort of take a poll later to see who's in the room, but it's a unique set of people.
I built one of the largest ed tech clusters in the world with my partners here, probably the largest, with over 200 startups doing education stuff. And what really attracts me about this space and makes it such an exciting time for all of us to be here is that if you look at the history of education technology and startups, legal tech and new law is exactly where that was like 10 to 12 years ago. So all of the people in this room who might have missed the boat with education technology, this is the boat.
I want to start with a question. Who here knows what this is? Does anybody know? It's an echo chamber. That's what an echo chamber looks like. This is also an echo chamber. Obviously, it's a more beautiful form of echo chamber, but it is also an echo chamber. Now that's an echo chamber. That is an echo chamber. So we're going to talk a little bit about echo chambers off the top. What is an echo chamber? It's a room or other enclosed space. We got one of those. Highly conducive to the production of echoes. Sounds like a lawyer wrote that. Particularly one that has been designed and built for this purpose. And it also, obviously, in the context of music production, it has a purpose there as well. It's a sound effect where sounds originate, again, from an enclosed space conducive to the manufacture of echoes. I think we're a little more interested in the last definition of an echo chamber as it's come to be known sort of in our common parlance, and it doesn't always have the nicest connotation to it. An insular communication space of no interest to outsiders or refuses their input. So what I'm suggesting is, for the moment, this is an echo chamber, but it doesn't have to stay that way, and I certainly hope that it does not. And in fact, a big part of what pushed Aron and I to want to sort of have this type of gathering is, you know, particularly on Twitter, I am in an echo chamber. I'm very happily in that echo chamber, but it's the like-minded travelers. They find each other. They always do, and I know many of the people in the room feel that way as well. But we have to remember that we've got a point of view. After a while, that it starts to get difficult to tell what's happening in the outside world, and we have to remember that we are, in fact, in an echo chamber. It's not a bad thing to be in an echo chamber, and in fact, I want to talk a bit more about what it is to be in multiple echo chambers. That's where it gets really interesting, and that's where you're a lot less isolated. So in terms of the echo chambers that I ride in, on the left-hand side, you know, I was called to the bar, the province of Ontario, 2002. I practiced law in Ontario for 6 years in private practice. I was in-house counsel for 6 years at Xerox. I also performed operational roles there. Those are all echo chambers. And for those of us that are lawyers in the room that are from Ontario, I think we've all come to recognize we've been socialized a certain way. We've come to think a certain way, and it's not a way that always makes me comfortable, quite frankly. I don't particularly like the Law Society. But the thing about it is I can't particularly tell you why. I just know that I don't, and I think it has to do with the fact that I was socialized as a lawyer, trained and practicing in this province to feel a certain way about the Law Society. I have no idea particularly. I can't fully articulate. I do know they make me nervous. They make me kind of nervous. And these days, they make me kind of a little pissy because I feel that the rest of the world is moving on in terms of innovation, and I feel we're sort of stuck. I can't possibly pin that on the Law Society, but I do. Right? And then I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt, which is just a form of many things, and I'll talk about it sort of in my talk. But it's a methodology. Ken Grady can certainly speak to it more formidably than I can. It's a methodology. It's a way to manage. It's a way to think. It, after a while, because it's got its own parlance and its own mores, it sort of is an echo chamber after a while as well. You either get and do Lean Six Sigma, or you don't, or maybe you're taking the best of. And then Xerox, I could put any big company up there, but I worked at a big company. And when you work in a big company, it's got a culture. I worked for the Canadian OpCo of Xerox Canada, which had its own unique culture within the Xerox world, particularly based on performance. It was the crown jewel of the global Xerox company because they were very, very high performing. But at the end of the day, they were simply a sales and marketing arm. So the culture was very different. I speak Xeroid. I am a Xeroid for life. I'm not there anymore, but I still speak Xeroid because I was in the echo chamber. So this half of the screen represents what I think is, it is who I am, but it's less and less who I am. More and more, the other side of the screen is who I've become. And it's certainly where my interests are, and it's certainly where I want to go. And it's also, most definitely, and I think like certain people in this room, it's where I think things are going to go. The problem is there's only a small percentage of people that are seeing it, which is always the way in the beginning. So certainly, Reinvent Law, I have to give a shout out. If you're in this room and you did not have opportunity to be in New York or London or Silicon Valley for the Reinvent Law conferences, I have to tell you, and I have to point out Peter Karayanis and thank him for taking me last year. It was a very unique experience. There were 800 people in the room, and it was like going to Mecca for the NewLaw movement. It wasn't a perfect day. There were parts of that day that were strange, weird, and simply had no utility. But for the most part, it was substantively a wonderful day. We got to hear from all kinds of people and get a little bit of a taste of what I hope we get today, which is to see what else is out there and to find the other like-minded travelers. So I think if you're tweeting today, and that's our hashtag, I had been asking, hey, when is the next Reinvent Law? And Aron and I actually, we were at Michigan State University about a month ago, where a lot of this emanates from, and I wanted to know, like, come on, like, something special happened that day. It was a very special event, and I got a tweet a couple days later and said basically, Jason, it's coming. So you can retweet that now. Reinvent Law is going to happen again this year. They've let us know. And so if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm telling you, find a way to get yourself to New York. You will not regret it. It's very unique. And it's unique and fun, etc. But it's also, it's your people. Your people are there. Your people are there. And then he's not here yet, but Mitch will be here. Certainly Mitch's book, you know, it has had an influence on me, as Mitch himself has. Other folks, I'm going to speak about new law, new rules in context and tell you a little bit of the backstory about that. It's fabulous. Everyone in this room is entitled to a free copy of that book. I will speak to that sort of at the end. And then if you're playing the home game, and this is where I expect the tweet traffic to go up, it is the first mention of Richard Susskind. Okay, so bingo. I'd rather we took a drink, but so Richard Susskind, obviously, like a lot of folks in law, has had a huge influence on me and the way that I think. And what does that mean? The way I think about law and the interplay with technology and process and mindset, and there absolutely has to be a better way. And so he's had a big influence on me as well. And then sort of this other stuff, you know, I'm a Mac boy. I'm just still talking about echo chambers, but I'm a Mac guy. The iPad changed my life more than the iPhone, simply because it gave me something where I already had an appetite to read, but this thing, this thing made me insatiable and voracious, and I can't stop reading. And so the iPad really did change my life. I sort of got into the Mac world, and so again, that's an echo chamber after a while. I speak to a lot of people in those circles. When I talk to my wife, she has no friggin' idea what I'm talking about. She's not in the echo chamber with me. And then folks like Seth Godin also had a huge influence on me. And again, on the point of echo chambers, part of what Seth Godin speaks to is what it is to have a tribe and be in a tribe. And it comes from having a frame of reference, having a number of interests, and being able to connect with people because you've got something that's niche. It's niche, but it's yours, and you're in the tribe. And there's nothing wrong with being in a tribe. And the thing that I want out of the tribes that I sort of walk in, and he's all about this, is you can make money in your tribe because you have found the people. You don't have to sell to the masses. You don't have to be of the masses. You can be within a tribe and still creating massive amounts of value that serves your tribe. And so we're a tribe. And then I have no idea how this happened, but in the last couple of years, I think it just comes from proximity. Living in Toronto, we've got one of the hottest startup spots in the world. We're in a building right now, which is a big part of that. But the startup scene in Toronto is world class. Throw that in and mix it in with Waterloo. It's probably within the top 3 areas in the world after the Valley and perhaps, I don't know, maybe Tel Aviv or somewhere. And so somehow or another, I started to speak startup. And I have no idea how that happened. But I'm glad that it did. And I think today, some of what we're talking about today is startup and its intersection with law. So that is what happens. When you straddle different echo chambers at the same time, you get a more global perspective. If you stay in your echo chamber, I think you're in danger. But if you can mash echo chambers together, and that's what we're doing today, that's when the cool shit happens. That's when the really cool stuff happens, and that's what we're doing today. It's a mashup of echo chambers. Law is business. To me, that's what it is. I didn't go to law school to avail myself of the life of fighting social justice and all those things. Those things have incredible merit. I'm just not built that way. Do I have an immense amount of admiration for the folks that do that? Oh boy, do I ever. Because it's getting harder and harder and harder for those folks to bring access to justice. This is what gets my attention. And I make no apologies for it. Anybody know what I'm referring to here? This is the size of the global legal market. That's the opportunity of the global legal market. The global legal market, not just law firms. And that's what I want to see a shift in people. It's not just law firms. It is, and it's not just legal tech. You have to start thinking, I think this is a main point of that Mitch has as well. We have to start thinking in terms of the legal services industry. Rather than, and I said legal services industry. I didn't say law firm. I didn't say that was necessarily performed and executed by lawyers. It's not. It's the legal services industry. And again, just my worldview. So where are we? This is the famous adoption curve. Where are we in the legal services industry? Where are we in innovation in the legal services industry? Where are we in the legal tech continuum of the legal services industry? I'm here to tell you we're still over here. It is very early days. It doesn't feel like it for a lot of us because we're in the thick of it every day. But I'm telling you, it's very, very early days for innovation in the legal services industry. Most lawyers can't even spell innovation. They can't. The bar is low. They will admit it. The bar is low, which again makes it an absolute right time. There's never been a better time to be in the legal services industry than right now. This is the ground floor. And again, just my view. I love millennials. I absolutely love millennials because I think I have their mindset. Only I'm 43 years old. or I will be 43 years old. So we've been here before. For those of us that are my age or older, we've been here before. There was a dot-com bust. I've been saying for the last year or so, it feels like it's 1999. Like it feels like Prince is going to pull up with his red Corvette and he's ready to party at any time, right? It's very, very frothy right now. And there were business plans on the back of napkins getting funding in 1999. And of course, we know what happened. So if you lived through that era, and I was in law school at the time, so I'm not sure if I was living. If you lived through that era, you can't help but ask yourself, is it deja vu all over again? Are we there? Like, is it gonna drop again? So, Andreessen says this time, oh God, I sure hope so. This time it's different. He says it is. Make your own decisions. Time will tell. But I have to think that the last time law wasn't even in the conversation as a place where you could go and start a company or innovate or bring technology or obtain funding for your venture into the market was not in the conversation last time. This time it is. Purpose. What's yours? What's yours today? Why did you come here? It wasn't to not get served coffee, that's for sure. But I do want you to think about why you came here. What's your purpose today? Because you have a frame of reference. It brought you here. It put you in the room. And I want you to leave today with your frame of reference changed. I want you to think about what your purpose is tomorrow and thereafter. What is it you're trying to achieve? Where is it you'd like to go? Who is it you'd like to meet? All in the context of legal services. Because there's an $800 billion opportunity out there and not enough people filling it. Here's the thing, right? I don't know how this happened, but somehow or another, I've been talking and I've been thinking about the legal services industry in a very in-depth way for a couple of years now, to the point that apparently if I get together with a guy that dresses funny, we can put 70 people in a room to talk about this. But I never lose sight of this. Thought leadership is wonderful. It has its place, but it doesn't get the trains to the station on time. And what we need are doers. And dreaming is important. It is an important part of how things happen, but we must never lose sight of. It's a central theme that you hear in MaRS again and again and again. You can think all you like, but you need to do. Thinking is the enemy of action in reality, and you have to have an action-oriented mentality in order to manifest your vision. And we've been talking about the future of law for so long now. It seems like, if you're in the echo chamber, it feels like a long time. It probably hasn't been, but it feels that way. Here's what I want to say. Thinking about the future, dreaming about the future is wonderful. It's brain candy. I love it. I could do it tirelessly. But the future, what is the expression? Someone's going to help me here. I want to say the future is now. The future's here. It's just not evenly distributed. Right? Gibson. That's a Gibson quote. These companies are three companies that I greatly admire. They're happening now. Axiom, as a matter of fact, and if you don't know who Axiom is, that's fine, but you're going to go find out today. Axiom's actually 14 years old. And they started and struggled for a number of years in the early days. Today, they're predicted to be the largest supplier of legal services in the world by 2018, as measured by the number of lawyers. They are not a law firm. So let's think on that one. It's worth mentioning the company was established, in getting the company established, they took on venture capital investment to the tune of $30 million. So somebody saw some promise there that others were not seeing. Today, Axiom, their annual revenues are reported $200 million. They have 1,200 employees, and they have 12 offices in the US, as well as other places in the world. A little smaller in scale. One of our fantastic sponsors today is Diligence Engine. Diligence Engine is a tool where it's not outsourcing per se, but it reduces the amount of time that lawyers spend on doing due diligence by a visualization of the data. And it's a shame that Noah Weisberg's not here today. He's a lovely fellow. I think he's from Toronto. He certainly spends a lot of time here. But he's built this company, and he's continuing to grow it. And aside from the numbers you see up there, I was just pulling something from the Globe and Mail just randomly. His little tiny legal tech startup touches $70 billion worth of M&A transactions. They are involved in transactions that have a value of $70 billion. And their customers are some of the world's largest corporations and professional services firms in the world. Elevate, again, all happening now. This is not the future. This is today. Elevate Services. This is a company that I really admire. I think their management team is phenomenal. And I think any business person would agree if I were to tell you that this company started in 2013. They have no debt. They took on no venture capital. They have $2 million in the bank. They tripled the 3x increase in their revenue last year. And I was telling them that I was coming here today, and they said, well, okay, I guess you can announce to the world that on Friday they signed a deal worth $40 million. And they've got many more in their pipeline. They are a legal services provider. They are not a law firm. They serve both, I think they're clever. They serve both the in-house corporate world by finding a way to decrease their outside legal spend. Talk about a growth opportunity for a business, lowering the amount that a company pays their outside lawyers. They do that on one side, and on the other side, they actually help law firms themselves, and they help law firms manage and optimize their IT, their accounting, all kinds of other processes in and around the legal space. I have to mention Commonwealth Legal for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're a sponsor. More importantly, they're local. This is a Canadian-based company. Certainly Dara knows them very well, that's for sure. This company was bought by Ricoh last year. These folks were pioneers in the Canadian market in terms of bringing legal technologies, particularly for the e-discovery due diligence space. There was nobody else around that could provide this service. And I can't imagine what that must have felt like to have a service that had a market everywhere else except for the place where you actually lived. But they've stuck around, and they now pull off this type of thing all the time in terms of saving their clients $1 million on a single transaction. So sure, commerce is fun because we like the idea of making money, but I'm telling you, there's nothing more satisfying than helping a client save money, because that is another way to create value, and that is something that people remember. They're going to come back to you. We keep talking about lean legal. It can be defined many ways. I'll speak a little bit about it. This is just sort of my take on it. Other folks have different versions. And excuse me that I am going to read a little bit. This paper, which you can find electronically, I found it really great. I think it was 2013 when it was written. I really enjoyed it because it was a very good description of the current landscape of the legal services market, both from a big law perspective and what's happening and the squeeze play that's happening on those folks, as well as the rise of the alternative providers. And we're talking big dollars in every case. So it's a great paper. I'm happy to get the link to you. But it has a really great section in there on lean legal. But lean legal to me really, again, so this is the second time you can take a drink. I'm about to refer to Richard Susskind. He came up with this paradigm, and he talks, again, I'm just going to read a little bit. He talks about the fact that, well, first I'll go back. The big thing is, it's this whole thing about the billable hour. It just, it doesn't make sense if you're a business person. It's a disincentive for efficiency. And I was trained as a lawyer. I was trained to think critically. And I've never met anybody that could explain to me how the billable hour is anything other than a disincentive to do things quickly and effectively. That's now starting to hit home for everybody. The curtain's been drawn back on that. And so that downward pressure on the billable hour has meant that a lot of what lawyers used to do is becoming more scrutinized. And the key question you can ask yourself now is, what is legal work? The perfect example is due diligence as an example. That used to be performed by lawyers, taking bankers' boxes, reviewing hundreds of documents. Aron and I wrote about the rise of Atenex in Seattle out of the Microsoft case. Microsoft paid hundreds of lawyers, hundreds of dollars per hour during the SEC investigation. Cost them millions of dollars just to do that one piece. Today, you would have a computer do it. You just would. If you put a bunch of lawyers on that, you'd be doing a gross disservice to your clients, and it'd be questionable even if what you were gouging and maybe in an area of malpractice at that point. So Susskind, I'm almost done, and after this I'm going to go into the intros of our speakers. I saw another one just arrive, so that's great. Susskind talks about legal work migrating from the bespoke, which is what the big firms want to do. They want to do the sexy stuff. They want to do the bet the farm stuff. A lot of the legal work is starting to move over to this side, to where it's going to be standardized, systemized, packaged, and commoditized. That's lean legal. That means a lot of the work that was being done, the non-value added activity, is being stripped away. And in many cases, the appropriate fee earner is being apportioned to do that task, rather than paying some lawyer a high hourly rate to do something that could be done, does not take a law degree to complete. That's happening more and more. That's lean legal, but lawyers are also a big part of what it is to perform lean legal as well. Just real quick, this is how I see it. Again, I would always defer to Ken if he were to question me on any of this. I would just say whatever he says. But a lot of lean legal comes out of originally from business orthodoxy from Deming. If you don't know the story of Deming, it's amazing. The guy had no traction in the US, so he moved to Japan, and the Japanese miracle happened. And a lot of what he was about was project planning with stages, plan, do, check, act. That morphed into the DMAIC paradigm that I'm familiar in Lean Six Sigma, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, control. It's just a paradigm or a methodology for building a product, building a company, managing a process, all that type of stuff. And then today, we're into lean startup. And lean startup is just build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn. The whole point of a startup is to get that cycle going as fast as you can so that you're getting your best product out faster. You're learning faster. You're cutting down the amount of time it takes for you to learn and build off your mistakes and iterate and get your product out there. Raise your hand if you are a lawyer or law student and you're in the room. Okay. Put your hands down. Raise your hand if you are a legal tech entrepreneur. And you could raise your hand again. Are you a legal tech entrepreneur? Okay. And raise your hand if you're neither a lawyer nor a legal tech entrepreneur. Okay. So that's your mashup. I don't know what the last group is. I'm going to suggest that they are people that are interested in the emerging new law movement, or they are people that either write in the space or talk about the space, or they are business people that are interested in legal. So now you know who's in the room. a little bit. There are some companies in the room. There are some fledgling companies in the room. There are some folks that are in the newspaper in the room today, and I encourage you to bump into each other and start talking. This is the point I want to make, is that funding never used to be available in our space, in the legal services space. I really wanted Josh Kubicki here today. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. Through efforts like himself and others like David Perla, increasingly, venture capital is coming into this space. So just keep that in mind. If you are a lawyer, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are interested in legal tech, just as there's an angel list, there's something called law angels as an example. Unfortunately, and it just loathes me to say this, I'm not so sure about the Canadian context. It's hard to get capital in Canada, period. Venture capital, I think it would, in the Canadian context, it's probably even more difficult to get venture capital for the legal tech startup space. Here's the thing that I want you to remember. If you are in the room and you're interested in this space and you're starting to get jazzed in this space and you want to go build something, and as you have these awesome connections you're going to have today and the energy that you're going to get from the people you meet today, you're going to carry that with you, I'm telling you, for weeks. And some of the people you're going to meet today, you're going to be speaking to for the next year. Here's the thing. I don't want to leave on a downer, but I do have to make mention of the fact, because I'm somebody that I've become addicted to this shit. I've absolutely become addicted to it. I love new law. I love startup. I love what's happening in the world. The fact that not everyone has caught up yet just mystifies me completely. I think it's our time. But here's the thing. You have to remember at all times, it's hard. It's hard. Startup is hard in the first place. It's even harder in the legal tech space. I take that back. It's at least as hard in the legal tech space. It's no easier in the legal space to do startup than it is in the other startup space. And when I read this quote about the sales cycle for the legal industry being 12 months or 12 to 18 months, I know there's some vendors in the room. I laughed. When I saw that, I thought, 12 to 18 months. It can be way longer than that. And so if you're trying to attract capital to yourself, it's very hard to show traction in the early days. And that's why I like these types of people getting together, so we all get a boost, so we all get through those times when we're down in the startup parlance, when we're down in the, whatever it's called, the valley of sorrow or whatever it is, to remember that it's hard. It's definitely worth it, but this is out there. So on that cheery note, I'm going to start the introductions to the speakers. And the reason why they're here is because they've got a lot of really energizing and engaging things to say that are going to, I think, inspire you.